The truth always comes out.
The wrench slipped from my greasy fingers and clattered against the concrete floor of my garage. Through the thin walls, I could hear Kara's voice floating from our kitchen window, that musical laugh I used to love now cutting through me like broken glass. "Oh, Grant, you're terrible," she giggled into her phone. "Jake, he's completely clueless. Still thinks I'm working late at the firm when I'm really with you. My name is Jake Morrison, and I've been fixing cars in this godforsaken town of Millbrook for 15 years. Honest work, dirty hands, simple life. Or so I thought until 30 seconds ago when my world imploded. I pressed myself against the garage wall, straining to hear more through the open window above the kitchen sink. "He actually asked if I wanted to go on a weekend trip to the mountains," Kara continued, her voice dripping with disdain. "Can you imagine? Me? Roughing it with Mr. Grease Monkey?" I told him I had depositions to review. The voice on the other end was muffled, but I caught Grant's distinctive arrogant chuckle. Grant Westbrook, the tech entrepreneur who'd tried to buy my garage 6 months ago, offering half its worth with that smug smile. The same bastard who'd hit on my wife at the Hendersons' barbecue last summer. "The best part is how grateful he gets when I throw him a bone," Kara said. "Made him breakfast yesterday after you left, and he practically kissed my feet. God, it's pathetic." My hands clenched into fists. 15 years of marriage, 2 kids, and this is what I get. I thought about our daughter Lila, 17 and embarrassed by her old man's blue-collar job. Our son Josh, 12 and still young enough to think his dad hung the moon. What would this do to them? "When are you going to tell him?" Grant's voice carried clearer now. "Soon," Kara replied. "I'm waiting for the partnership vote at the firm. Once that's secured, I won't need to pretend anymore. Jake can keep his little garage and his pathetic friends. I'll have everything I actually want." I'd heard enough, more than enough. But as I turned to leave, Kara's next words froze me in place. "Your sister Melissa has been so helpful with all this. Having her feed information about Jake to the other wives has been brilliant. Half the neighborhood thinks he's having a midlife crisis." Melissa Westbrook, Grant's entitled sister who'd married into our friend group when she snagged Tom Patterson 3 years ago. The same Melissa who'd been stirring up drama ever since, turning social gatherings into competitions and making snide comments about everyone's lifestyle choices. It all clicked into place, the way our friends had been distant lately. The canceled dinner plans, the awkward silences when I joined conversations. They'd been playing me for a fool, and I'd been too trusting to see it. "Melissa suggested we use the lake house this weekend," Grant said. "Tom's out of town on business, so it's perfect." The lake house. Tom's pride and joy. The cabin he'd inherited from his grandfather and spent every weekend renovating. The same cabin where our group had celebrated countless birthdays, holidays, and milestones. Now they were using it as their love nest. I carefully made my way back to the Chevy I'd been working on, my mind racing. The rational part of me wanted to storm into the kitchen and confront Kara immediately. But something darker whispered that I should be smart about this. Patient. If they wanted to play games, I'd show them how a real player operates. 20 minutes later, Kara breezed into the garage wearing her yoga outfit, all smiles and fake concern. "How's the Henderson car coming along, honey?" she asked, pecking me on the cheek, like nothing had happened. I looked at my wife, really looked at her. The perfectly styled blonde hair, the expensive workout clothes, the manicured nails that never touched anything dirty. When had she become this person? Or had she always been this way, and I'd been too blind to see it? "Almost finished," I said evenly. "How was your call with the office?" "Oh, just boring case review stuff," she lied smoothly. "I might have to work late again tomorrow. Big client meeting." "Of course," I nodded. "You work so hard. I'm lucky to have such a dedicated wife." The irony wasn't lost on either of us, though only I knew it. That night, after Kara fell asleep beside me, I lay staring at the ceiling and planning. If she wanted to destroy our marriage, fine, but she'd picked the wrong man to underestimate. Jake Morrison might be just a mechanic to her, but I'd grown up in this town. I knew everyone's secrets, everyone's pressure points, and unlike my cheating wife and her entitled boyfriend, I understood the value of loyalty. By morning, I had a plan. The next day started like any other, except everything had changed. I made coffee, kissed Kara goodbye as she left for her depositions, and got the kids off to school. But underneath the routine, I was gathering intelligence. My first stop was Murphy's Diner, the unofficial headquarters of Millbrook gossip. Sure enough, Dolores Murphy was behind the counter, her eagle eyes missing nothing as the morning crowd filtered through. "Jake Morrison," she called out as I entered. "Haven't seen you in here for weeks. The usual?" "Thanks, Dolores." I settled onto a stool at the counter. Kara's been on this health kick, making protein smoothies every morning. Sometimes a man just needs real coffee and a donut. "Tell me about it," she laughed. My Harold tried that paleo nonsense for about 5 minutes. "How is Kara, anyway? Saw her at Brennan's Market yesterday with that Westbrook boy. Looked pretty cozy." There it was. Dolores had seen them together, and if she had, half the town probably knew by now. In a place like Millbrook, secrets had a shelf life of about 15 minutes. "Oh, that's just business," I said casually. "Grant's been trying to get me to sell the garage. Kara's helping me understand the legal side of his offer." Dolores raised an eyebrow but didn't push. She'd planted her seed of gossip and would wait to see what grew from it. My next stop was the bank, where I had a very interesting conversation with Patricia Collins, the loan officer who'd helped Kara and me refinance the house last year. "Jake, good to see you," Patricia smiled. "What brings you in today?" "Just want to review our accounts," I said. "Kara mentioned something about setting up a separate savings account for Lila's college fund, and I want to make sure I understand our options." What I really wanted was to understand exactly where our money was and how it could be moved. Patricia was happy to walk me through everything: joint accounts, individual accounts, automatic transfers, the works. By the time I left, I had a complete picture of our financial situation and several new ideas. The afternoon brought my most important stop, Ricky's boxing gym. Ricky Torino had been my friend since high school, back when we both thought we might make something of ourselves in the ring. Now he trained local kids and served as the unofficial therapist for half the men in town. "Jake!" Ricky looked up from wrapping a teenager's hands. "What brings you to my palace of pain?" "Need to blow off some steam," I said. "Mind if I work the heavy bag for a while?" "Go for it. You look like you could use it." For the next hour, I pounded my frustrations into the leather bag while Ricky worked with his other clients. When the gym finally emptied out, he joined me with 2 beers from the mini fridge in his office. "All right, spill it," he said. "You got that look." "What look?" "The same look you had in 10th grade when you found out Jenny Kowalski was cheating on you with that basketball player. Like you want to hit something, but you're trying to be civilized about it." I took a long pull from my beer and told him everything. The phone call, the lake house, Melissa's involvement, the whole sordid mess. Ricky listened without interruption, his expression growing darker with each detail. "That's rough, man," he said when I finished. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to be smart about it," I replied. "Kara thinks she's playing chess while I'm playing checkers. Time to show her that mechanics understand more than just engines." "You need help, you call me," Ricky said seriously. That's what friends are for. As I drove home that evening, I reflected on the difference between Ricky's immediate loyalty and the fair-weather friendship I'd been getting from Tom, Brad, and the rest of our social circle. It was about to become very clear who my real friends were. Kara was already home when I walked in, bustling around the kitchen and humming to herself. She seemed almost giddy, probably from whatever afternoon delight she'd enjoyed with Grant. "How was your day, honey?" she asked brightly. "Productive," I said truthfully. "Got a lot accomplished. How are your depositions?" "Oh, you know how it is. Lots of paperwork, boring legal stuff." She waved dismissively. "I might have to work late again tomorrow. This case is really heating up." "I'll bet it is," I thought. "That's fine," I said aloud. I was thinking of having the guys over for poker tomorrow night anyway. Haven't seen Tom and Brad in a while. Kara's smile flickered for just a moment. "That sounds nice. You should definitely do that." She was probably already texting Grant about having the house to themselves while I was distracted with cards. Perfect. After dinner, while Kara was helping Lila with homework and Josh was absorbed in his video games, I made a few phone calls. Tom Patterson answered on the second ring. "Jake, how's it going, buddy?" Good. Listen, I was thinking of having a poker night tomorrow. You free?" There was a pause. "Tomorrow? Yeah, I think so. Let me just check with Melissa." Interesting. Since when did Tom need permission from his wife to play cards with his friends? "Great," I said. "I'll call Brad and Mike too. 7 o'clock work for you?" "Sure thing. Should I bring anything?" "Just your wallet," I joked. I'm feeling lucky. If only he knew how lucky I was actually feeling. The next evening, I set up the card table in my basement den and waited for my guests to arrive. Kara had left an hour earlier, claiming she needed to work late at the office. She'd even made a show of packing her briefcase and complaining about difficult clients. Tom arrived first, looking uncomfortable and avoiding eye contact. Brad Williams and Mike Chen showed up together 15 minutes later, both seeming oddly tense for what should have been a relaxing evening among friends. "Beer's in the cooler, guys," I announced as they settled around the table. "Help yourselves." As I dealt the first hand, I studied my friends' faces. These were men I'd known for years, guys I'd stood up for at their weddings, helped move furniture, lent money to when times were tight. Now they sat in my basement acting like they'd rather be anywhere else. "So Tom," I said casually, "how's the lake house coming along? Last time I was up there, you were talking about redoing the deck." Tom nearly dropped his cards. "Oh, it's good. Still working on it. Might be a while before it's ready for company again." "That's a shame," I replied. "Kara was just saying how much she misses our group trips up there. Remember that 4th of July when Brad fell off the dock trying to impress that girl from town?" "That was a long time ago," Brad muttered, not meeting my eyes. The conversation limped along for the next hour, punctuated by awkward silences and nervous laughter. These men who used to joke and argue and tell stories were treating me like a stranger, or worse, like someone they pitied. Finally, I decided to test the waters. "You know what's funny?" I said, tossing chips into the pot. "Kara's been working so much lately, I barely see her. Sometimes I wonder what she does with all that free time." The silence that followed was deafening. Tom stared at his cards, Brad suddenly became fascinated with the beer label, and Mike started shuffling his chips nervously. "I'm sure she's just busy with work," Tom finally said weakly. "Oh, I'm sure," I agreed. "Though it's interesting how she always seems to have meetings on the same days your wife goes out of town, Tom. What a coincidence." Tom's face went pale. "What do you mean by that?" "Nothing at all," I smiled. "Just making conversation. Your call, by the way." The game deteriorated rapidly after that. Brad folded early and claimed he had to get home to his wife. Mike followed suit, mumbling about an early morning. Within 20 minutes, it was just Tom and me sitting at the table. "Jake," Tom started, then stopped. "Something on your mind, Tom?" He looked like a man facing execution. "Look, if there's something you want to say, just say it." I set down my cards and looked at my oldest friend. "I want to say that I trusted you. I want to say that when I needed friends, I thought I could count on you. But mostly, I want to say that I know. Know what? I know about Grant and Kara. I know about your sister helping them. I know about the lake house, the lies, all of it." My voice stayed calm, but Tom flinched like I'd shouted. "Jake, I also know that you've been talking about me behind my back. That you've let Melissa turn our friend group against me while my wife screws around with her brother." Tom's shoulders sagged. "It's not like that." "Then what is it like, Tom? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like my best friend chose his wife's family over 20 years of friendship. Melissa said—" "I don't give a care what Melissa said." I finally let some anger creep into my voice. "She's been in our group for 3 years, Tom, 3 years. I've known you since we were kids. We were each other's best men, for Christ's sake." Tom stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "You don't understand the position I'm in." "Enlighten me." "Melissa knows things, Jake, about my business, about mistakes I've made. She said if I didn't distance myself from you, she'd make sure everyone knew about the problems with the Patterson construction accounts." There it was. Blackmail. Melissa had been systematically isolating me by threatening my friends. The entitled little princess had been playing puppet master with all our lives. "So you threw me under the bus to protect yourself," I said quietly. "I'm sorry, Jake. I really am, but I couldn't risk losing everything. Get out of my house, Tom. Jake, get out and tell your sister-in-law that she picked the wrong man to mess with." After Tom left, I sat alone in my basement, surrounded by empty beer bottles and abandoned poker chips. The last 15 years of my social life had just walked out the door, but strangely I felt relieved. Now I knew exactly where I stood, and more importantly, I knew what I had to do. Upstairs, I could hear Kara's car pulling into the driveway, right on schedule, her late night at the office ending just as my poker game broke up. She probably had a text from Tom or one of the others telling her the coast was clear. I climbed the stairs and found her in the kitchen, looking flushed and slightly disheveled despite her claims of working late. "How was poker?" she asked, not quite meeting my eyes. "Educational," I replied. "Very educational." The next few days passed in a strange sort of calm. Kara went about her routine, probably thinking her secret was still safe. I went to work, fixed cars, and planned my next moves. The difference was that now I was operating with complete clarity. No more doubts, no more second-guessing myself. On Friday morning, everything came to a head. I was under the hood of Mrs. Henderson's Buick when I heard familiar voices outside my garage. Through the window, I could see Melissa Westbrook standing on the sidewalk with two other women from our former social circle, Janet Williams and Susan Chen, Brad and Mike's wives. I'm just saying, we all need to be careful, Melissa was saying in that fake concerned tone she'd perfected. Jake's been acting strange lately. Tom said he seemed almost threatening at poker night. Threatening how? Janet asked. Just paranoid, asking weird questions about Kara's schedule. You know how men get when they hit middle age. Sometimes they snap. I'd heard enough. I wiped my hands on a shop rag and walked outside. Ladies, I said pleasantly. Beautiful morning, isn't it? All three women froze like deer in headlights. Melissa recovered first, plastering on her practiced smile. Jake, we were just talking about you. I heard something about me snapping. Oh, that's not what Melissa, let me save us both some time, I interrupted. I know about your brother and my wife. I know about your little campaign to turn our friends against me. And I know about the blackmail. Her face went white, then flushed red. I have no idea what you're talking about. Tom told me everything. About the threats, the pressure, all of it. This was only partially true. Tom had only admitted to being blackmailed about his business problems, but Melissa's reaction told me there was much more. You're delusional, she snapped, her mask finally slipping. No wonder Kara needs to find happiness elsewhere. Who could blame her for wanting better than a greasy mechanic who can't even keep his friends? Janet and Susan looked uncomfortable, clearly wishing they were anywhere else, but I was just getting started. Tell me, Melissa, does Tom know about your gambling problem? Her eyes went wide. It was a guess in the dark, but her reaction confirmed I'd hit the target. Or should I say, does he know about the money you've been stealing from the construction accounts to cover your debts? You can't prove anything, she whispered. Maybe not, but I bet a good forensic accountant could, especially if they knew where to look. Another bluff, but effective. What do you want? She asked quietly. I want you to understand something very clearly, I said, stepping closer. You came into my life, into my friend group, and you decided to destroy it for your own entertainment. You turned good people against each other, you enabled your brother's affair with my wife, and you thought you could blackmail your way out of consequences. I paused, letting that sink in. But here's what you didn't understand, Melissa. I'm not some suburban husband who's going to quietly disappear. I'm a man who fixes things for a living. And right now, you're the thing that needs fixing. Are you threatening me? She asked, trying to sound brave. I'm promising you. Keep playing games with my life, and I'll make sure everyone in this town knows exactly who you really are. Starting with your husband. With that, I turned and walked back into my garage, leaving the three women standing on the sidewalk. Through the window, I watched them have a heated, whispered conversation before they scattered like roaches when the lights come on. That afternoon, my phone rang. It was Tom. Jake, we need to talk. I'm listening. Melissa's freaking out. She says you threatened her. I told her the truth. There's a difference. Look, I know I screwed up, but you can't drag innocent people into this. Innocent? I laughed harshly. Tom, your wife has been systematically destroying my marriage and my friendships for months. The only innocent people here are my kids. What do you want from us? I want you to stay out of my way while I handle the situation. I want Melissa to stop interfering in my life. And I want you to think about whether your wife's secrets are worth 20 years of friendship. And if we don't, then you'll find out what happens when you push a man too far. I hung up and immediately called Ricky. I need that favor now, I told him. What do you need? Help me catch a cheating wife and her boyfriend in the act. It's time to end this. Saturday morning arrived gray and drizzly. Perfect weather for what I had planned. Kara left early, claiming she needed to go into the office to prepare for a big Monday morning meeting. She kissed me goodbye and told me not to wait up. I'll probably be working most of the day, she said. Don't worry about dinner. I won't, I assured her. An hour later, Ricky picked me up in his pickup truck. We drove the winding road to Patterson Lake in comfortable silence, both of us knowing what we were likely to find. The lake house sat on a secluded cove, accessible only by a narrow dirt road through the woods. Tom's grandfather had chosen the location for privacy, and 3 generations of Pattersons had enjoyed the isolation. Now the privacy was serving a different purpose. We parked a quarter-mile away and hiked through the trees. Ricky had brought his camera equipment. He'd done some private investigation work after his boxing career ended, and he knew how to document infidelity. There, he whispered, pointing through the branches. Grant's silver BMW was parked next to a red Honda Civic I didn't recognize. But I knew Kara's car was in the garage. She'd mentioned having it serviced yesterday, though I now realized that was probably another lie. We crept closer to the house, staying hidden in the tree line. Through the large windows facing the lake, we could see movement inside. And then I saw them. My wife was in the arms of Grant Westbrook, both of them clearly having just woken up. They were laughing about something, completely at ease in their betrayal. Kara was wearing one of Grant's shirts and nothing else, looking more relaxed and happy than I'd seen her in years. Ricky started taking pictures, the camera's telephoto lens capturing everything in sharp detail. But I was focused on something else, the way Kara touched Grant's face, the intimate familiarity between them. This wasn't a new affair. They'd been together for months, maybe longer. "Jake," Ricky whispered urgently. "Someone's coming." A car was approaching on the dirt road. We melted deeper into the woods and watched as Tom's pickup truck pulled up to the house. But it wasn't Tom who got out. It was Melissa, followed by another woman I recognized as Sandra Price, Grant's business partner. This wasn't just an affair. It was a whole conspiracy. We watched as Melissa knocked on the door and was welcomed inside by Grant. Through the windows, we could see the 4 of them gathered around the kitchen table, looking very much like they were having a business meeting. "What the heck is going on?" Ricky muttered. I was wondering the same thing. This was bigger than just adultery. But before I could figure it out, my phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Lila. "Dad, where are you? Mom's boss called looking for her. He says she never showed up to work today." My blood ran cold. Kara had lied to me, but she'd also lied to her law firm on a Saturday when she was supposed to be preparing for a crucial Monday meeting. Either she was more reckless than I'd thought, or something else was happening. I texted back, "I'll handle it, don't worry." But I was worried, very worried. "We need to get closer," I told Ricky. "Something's not right here." We worked our way around to the back of the house, where a deck overlooked the lake. The sliding door was open, and voices carried clearly in the still air. "The partnership vote is Monday," Kara was saying. "Once that's secured, we can move forward with the plan." "And you're sure Jake won't be a problem?" Grant asked. "Please, he's a mechanic. He fixes cars and drinks beer with his loser friends. He has no idea what's really happening." "Those loser friends are getting suspicious," Melissa interjected. "Tom said Jake was asking questions at poker night." "Then we accelerate the timeline," Sandra said. "The property transfers need to happen this week anyway." "Property transfers? What property transfers?" "My husband won't fight the divorce once he sees the evidence we've prepared," Kara continued. "Especially the financial irregularities in his business accounts." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. They weren't just planning to humiliate me. They were planning to frame me for something. "The garage property alone is worth $500,000, Grant said. "Once Jake's out of the picture and facing criminal charges, we can buy it from the bank for pennies on the dollar." Now it all made sense. This wasn't about love or even lust. It was about money. My garage sat on prime real estate in the heart of downtown Millbrook, and they wanted it. "What about the kids?" Melissa asked. "They'll be better off without him," Kara said coldly. "Jake's always been a bad influence on them anyway. No ambition, no class. They need to see what success really looks like." That was the moment I stopped feeling hurt and started feeling dangerous. They could destroy my marriage, steal my property, even send me to jail, but they'd crossed the line when they brought my children into it. Ricky must have seen something in my expression because he grabbed my arm and shook his head. "Not here," he whispered. "Not like this." He was right. Charging in now would accomplish nothing except landing me in jail for real. But I'd heard enough to understand what I was up against, and I'd gotten it all on Ricky's digital recorder. We retreated to the truck and drove back to town in tense silence. Finally, Ricky spoke. "Jake, this is bigger than cheating. They're talking about framing you for financial crimes." "I know. We need to call the police." "With what evidence? Everything we heard was just conversation. We need proof of actual crimes, not just plans to commit them." "So what do we do?" I thought about that question as we drove through downtown Millbrook, Past the diner where I'd grown up eating Sunday breakfast with my parents, past the high school where I'd met Kara, past the church where we'd gotten married. This town was my home. These people were my community. And I'd be damned if I was going to let a group of entitled sociopaths destroy everything I'd built. We're going to beat them at their own game, I said finally. But we're going to do it right. Sunday morning, I woke up alone. Kara had texted sometime after midnight, claiming she'd decided to stay at her sister's house rather than drive home late. Another lie, but I was past caring about her deceptions. Instead, I spent the morning making phone calls and setting my own plans in motion. My first call was to Patricia Collins at the bank. Even though it was Sunday, she agreed to meet me at her office for an emergency financial consultation. "Jake, what's so urgent?" she asked as she unlocked the bank's side entrance. "I have reason to believe someone is planning to frame me for embezzlement or fraud," I said without preamble. "I need to protect myself and my assets before they can act." Patricia's eyes widened. "That's a serious accusation. It's a serious situation." I showed her the photos Ricky had taken and played portions of the recorded conversation. I need to understand exactly what they could do to me financially and how to prevent it. For the next 2 hours, Patricia walked me through every aspect of my financial life. Bank accounts, business records, tax filings, property deeds, everything. She also explained how someone could potentially manipulate records to create the appearance of impropriety. "The good news is that your books are clean," she said finally. "Your business account activity is straightforward, and there's a clear paper trail for every transaction. The bad news is that someone with access to your personal information could potentially create false documents or make unauthorized transfers. How do I protect myself? First, we change all your passwords and account numbers. Second, we set up additional security measures on all your accounts. Third, we document everything we've done today so there's a clear record of your proactive steps." By the time I left the bank, I felt more secure, but also more aware of how vulnerable I'd been. If they'd acted first, they might have succeeded in framing me. My second stop was the office of Martin Reeves, the best criminal defense attorney in the county. Martin had grown up in Millbrook and knew everyone worth knowing. More importantly, he owed me a favor. I'd rebuilt the engine in his classic Mustang for free the previous year. "Jake Morrison," he smiled as I entered his home office. "Don't tell me you're finally ready to sell me that '67 Camaro. I need legal advice, Martin, the kind that stays between us." His expression grew serious. "What's going on?" I told him everything. The affair, the conspiracy, the financial fraud they were planning, all of it. Martin listened without interruption, occasionally taking notes. "This is elaborate," he said when I finished, "and potentially very serious. If they're planning to plant evidence of financial crimes, you could be looking at felony charges. Can you help me? I can do better than that. I can help you turn the tables on them." For the next hour, Martin outlined a strategy that was both legally sound and devastatingly effective. By the time I left his office, I was no longer playing defense. My final stop was the most important one, home, where my children were waiting. Lila was in her room, supposedly doing homework, but actually scrolling through social media. Josh was in the living room, building something complicated with Legos. Normal teenage Sunday activities, except nothing about our lives was normal anymore. "Hey kids," I called out, "family meeting in the kitchen?" They both groaned but complied. As they settled at the kitchen table, I looked at these two people who meant more to me than anything else in the world. "I need to tell you both something important," I began. "Your mother and I are probably going to get divorced." Lila's face went pale. Josh's eyes filled with tears. "Is it because of us?" Josh asked in a small voice. "No, buddy. It's not because of you. And it's not because of anything you did. Sometimes adults make choices that hurt the people they're supposed to love." "Is Mom having an affair?" Lila asked quietly. I was surprised by her directness, but then I remembered she was 17, not 7. She'd probably sensed the tension for months. "Yes," I said simply. "She is." "With who?" "That doesn't matter right now. What matters is that I want you both to know that I love you. I'm not going anywhere, and I'm going to fight to make sure you're taken care of." "Are we going to be okay?" Josh asked. "We're going to be better than okay. But things are going to get complicated for a while, and I need you both to trust me, even if you don't understand everything that's happening." They both nodded, And I felt a surge of pride in these resilient kids who were handling this better than most adults would. One more thing, I added. If anyone, and I mean anyone, tries to tell you bad things about me or asks you questions about our family, I want you to come to me first, okay? Okay, Dad, they said in unison. That evening, Kara finally came home, breezing in around dinner time with shopping bags and a bright smile. Sorry I'm so late, she announced. Sarah and I got carried away at the mall. Another lie. Her sister Sarah lived in Chicago. How was your weekend? She asked, settling into her chair at the dinner table. Productive, I replied. Very productive. As we ate dinner together as a family for what I knew would be one of the last times, I watched Kara laugh and joke with the children, playing the role of devoted mother while planning to destroy their father. It was a performance worthy of an Oscar, but I was done being her audience. Tomorrow, the real show would begin. Monday morning arrived with unseasonable warmth and crystal clear skies. Perfect weather for what I had planned. Kara left early for her crucial partnership meeting, looking confident and polished in her best suit. She kissed me goodbye and told me to wish her luck. I have a feeling today's going to change everything, she said. She had no idea how right she was. At exactly 9 a.m., I walked into the offices of Kessler, Morrison & Associates, the law firm where my wife worked. The receptionist looked surprised to see me. Mr. Morrison, are you here to see Kara? I think she's in a meeting. Actually, I'm here to see Mr. Kessler, I said. I have some information he needs to see before he makes any important decisions today. 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from Robert Kessler, the senior partner who'd built the firm from nothing over 30 years. He was a tough, no-nonsense man who'd grown up poor and earned everything he had. Jake, what can I do for you? He asked, gesturing for me to sit. I need to show you something that might affect your partnership decision today. I handed him a folder containing printed copies of the photos from the lake house, transcripts of the recorded conversations, and a detailed timeline of Kara's lies about working late. Kessler's expression grew darker as he reviewed the evidence. This is your wife with Grant Westbrook, he said finally. Yes, sir. And you recorded this conversation yourself? My friend did, but yes, everything in that folder is authentic. Kessler leaned back in his chair. Jake, I appreciate you bringing this to me, but I have to ask, what do you want from me? I want you to know who you're considering for partnership. Kara's been lying to you for months about her whereabouts and activities. She's been using your firm's reputation to cover her affair, and she's planning to use her new position to help her boyfriend commit fraud. That's a serious accusation. It's a serious situation. Mr. Kessler, you've known me for 15 years. Have I ever lied to you? He considered this. No, you haven't. Then please, just consider what I've shown you before you vote today. Kessler nodded slowly. I'll take this under advisement. As I left the law firm, I felt a grim satisfaction. Kara's partnership was probably dead in the water, but that was just the beginning. My next stop was City Hall, where I had an appointment with Planning Commissioner Janet Walsh. Janet was a straight shooter who'd been fighting corruption in local government for decades. Mr. Morrison, what brings you here today? I showed her the same evidence I'd given Kessler, but focused on the parts about property transfers and the plan to buy my garage for pennies on the dollar. This suggests a conspiracy to manipulate property values and exploit legal proceedings for financial gain, I explained. Janet's jaw tightened as she reviewed the documents. If this is accurate, it represents a serious misuse of the legal system. What can be done about it? I can launch an investigation into any recent property transactions involving these individuals. If we find evidence of fraud or manipulation, we can refer it to the district attorney. How long will that take? These things move slowly, but I can fast-track it given the seriousness of the allegations. My final morning appointment was with Sergeant Mike Riley at the police station. Mike and I had played softball together for years, and I trusted him to handle sensitive information properly. Jake, what's all this about? He asked as I handed him yet another copy of my evidence folder. I have reason to believe that several people are planning to frame me for financial crimes as part of a larger fraud scheme. Mike's eyebrows shot up. That's a heck of an accusation. I know how it sounds, but please, just look at the evidence. Mike spent 20 minutes reviewing everything, asking detailed questions about dates, times, and locations. This is solid, he said finally. If even half of this is true, you've potentially uncovered a significant conspiracy. What happens now? Now I open a file and start investigating. And Jake, you did the right thing bringing this to us first instead of trying to handle it yourself. By noon, I planted seeds that would grow into major problems for Kara, Grant, Melissa, and Sandra, but I wasn't done yet. I drove to Grant's office building in the downtown business district. Westbrook Technologies occupied the entire top floor of the newest high-rise in town, all glass and steel and modern pretension. The receptionist tried to stop me, but I walked past her desk and straight into Grant's corner office. He was on the phone, probably talking to Kara about her partnership meeting. "I'll call you back," he said quickly, hanging up. "Jake, this is unexpected." "I'm sure it is." I closed the door behind me and took a seat across from his desk. "We need to talk." "About what?" "About your plans for my garage? About framing me for financial crimes? About my wife?" Grant's face went through several color changes before settling on pale green. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. You and Kara and your sister and Sandra Price, the whole conspiracy. I know about all of it." "You're paranoid, Jake. Kara said you'd been acting strange lately. Did she also tell you that I spent this morning talking to her boss, the planning commissioner, and the police?" Grant's composure cracked completely. "You can't prove anything." "I can prove enough. Photos, recordings, financial records, witness statements. How do you think that's going to play out for you?" I stood up and walked to his floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out over the town I'd lived in my entire life. "Here's what's going to happen, Grant. You're going to end your relationship with my wife immediately. You're going to abandon any plans involving my property or my business, and you're going to leave town." "You can't make me do anything." I turned back to face him. "Can't I? By tomorrow morning, everyone in Millbrook will know exactly what you've been up to. Your business reputation will be destroyed, your investors will flee, your customers will find other vendors." "That's blackmail." "No, that's consequences. You wanted to play games with my life, so now we're playing games with yours. The difference is, I'm better at this than you are." Grant's phone buzzed with a text message. He glanced at it, and his face went even paler. "Problem?" I asked. "Kara didn't get the partnership?" "Shocking. I guess adultery and fraud aren't the qualifications they're looking for in a law partner." I headed for the door, then paused. "Oh, and Grant, if you're thinking about retaliating or trying to hurt my family, remember that I have nothing left to lose now. That makes me very dangerous." As I left his office, I could hear him frantically dialing his phone, probably calling Melissa or Sandra to figure out their next move, but I was already 3 steps ahead of them. By Tuesday morning, the carefully constructed conspiracy was falling apart like a house of cards in a hurricane. I was in my garage working on a transmission rebuild when Tom Patterson showed up. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Jake, we need to talk." I didn't look up from my work. "I'm listening." "Melissa's gone." That got my attention. "Gone where?" "I don't know. She packed a bag yesterday evening and said she was visiting her mother in Florida. But I called her mother. She's not there." I wiped my hands on a shop rag and gave Tom my full attention. "What else?" "The police came by yesterday afternoon asking questions about our finances. They wanted to see records for the construction company, bank statements, tax returns. They had a warrant, Jake." "Did you cooperate?" "Of course I cooperated. I've got nothing to hide." He paused. "But Melissa did. They found irregularities in our accounts, money missing, unauthorized transfers, forged signatures." "How much money?" $40,000, maybe more." I whistled low. "That's a felony." "She's been stealing from me for months, Jake, using the money to cover gambling debts and fund her shopping addiction. I had no idea." Tom looked broken, and despite everything that had happened between us, I felt sorry for him. "What are you going to do?" I asked. "I'm going to cooperate with the investigation and try to save my business. And Jake, I'm sorry. I should have stood by you instead of letting Melissa manipulate me." "Yeah, you should have. But I understand the position you were in. Are we okay?" I considered the question. Tom had betrayed our friendship, but he'd been blackmailed and manipulated by his own wife. He was as much a victim as I was. "We're okay," I said finally, "but things are going to be different." After Tom left, I got a call from Martin Reeves. "Jake, you need to know what's happening with your wife's situation." "Tell me." "Kessler fired her yesterday afternoon. Effective immediately, no severance, no references. Word is spreading through the legal community that she's toxic." "What about Grant?" "That's even better. 3 of his major clients canceled their contracts yesterday. His investors are demanding an audit of the company books. And the Planning Commission has frozen all pending property transactions involving Westbrook Technologies pending their investigation. I felt a savage satisfaction hearing this news. They'd tried to destroy my life, and now their own lives were crumbling. There's more, Martin continued. Sandra Price has agreed to cooperate with authorities in exchange for immunity. She's providing evidence about the conspiracy to defraud you and manipulate property values. What kind of evidence? Emails, text messages, recorded phone calls. Apparently, she documented everything as insurance in case the plan went bad. It seemed Sandra was smarter than her co-conspirators. She'd seen the writing on the wall and decided to save herself. What does this mean for me? I asked. It means you're completely in the clear. More than that, you're going to be seen as the victim who helped expose a significant fraud scheme. Your reputation in this town is about to be bulletproof. That afternoon, I got a visit from someone I wasn't expecting, Kara. She walked into my garage looking haggard and desperate, a far cry from the confident woman who'd left for her partnership meeting the day before. Jake, we need to talk. I'm busy. Please. 5 minutes. I set down my tools and faced my wife of 15 years. What do you want, Kara? I want to explain. Explain what? The affair, the lies, the plan to frame me for crimes I didn't commit? Her face crumpled. How did you find out? Does it matter? I never meant for it to go this far. It started as just, I don't know, excitement, something different. And then it became a conspiracy to destroy me and steal my property. That wasn't my idea. Grant said we could be together, start fresh if we could just get past the obstacles. The obstacles being me and my business. She nodded miserably. I know how it sounds. It sounds like you decided I was disposable, that our marriage, our family, our life together meant nothing compared to your ambition and your boyfriend's money. That's not true, isn't it? You were willing to send me to prison, Kara. You were willing to let our children think their father was a criminal. For what? A partnership at a law firm? A relationship with a man who's probably going to be indicted for fraud? She started crying, but I felt no sympathy. This was the woman who'd laughed about my uselessness while planning my destruction. What do you want from me? I asked. I want to fix this. I want us to work it out. There's nothing to work out. You made your choice when you decided to betray me. Now you get to live with the consequences. What about the kids? What about them? You should have thought about the kids before you decided to destroy their family. Jake, please. I'll do anything. You can start by moving out of my house today. Where am I supposed to go? I lost my job. I have no money. That's not my problem anymore. You made your bed with Grant Westbrook. Go lie in it. She left without another word, and I went back to work. But I couldn't concentrate. 15 years of marriage was ending, and despite everything she'd done, it still hurt. That evening, I sat down with Lila and Josh to explain what was happening. Mom's moving out, I told them. The divorce is going to happen quickly. Where's she going? Josh asked. I don't know, buddy, but you'll still see her. This doesn't change the fact that she's your mother. Will we have to move? Lila asked. No, this is our home and we're staying here. Good, she said firmly. I like our house. As I tucked Josh into bed that night, he asked the question I'd been dreading. Dad, why did Mom do this to us? I don't know, son. Sometimes people make choices that hurt the people they love. It doesn't mean she doesn't love you, but she hurt you. Yes, she did. But that's between her and me. Your relationship with your mom is separate from that. I'm mad at her. That's okay. You're allowed to be mad. Just remember that anger can hurt you more than it hurts anyone else if you hold on to it too long. As I turned off his light and closed his door, I wondered if I was following my own advice. 3 weeks later, the full scope of the conspiracy had been exposed, and the consequences were falling like dominoes. Grant Westbrook was arrested on charges of conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted extortion, and money laundering. His company was in bankruptcy, his assets were frozen, and his reputation was destroyed. The man who'd thought he could buy anything he wanted was learning that some things, like integrity, couldn't be purchased. Melissa Patterson was arrested in Miami, trying to board a flight to the Cayman Islands with a suitcase full of cash. She was facing charges of embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. Her gambling debts had apparently been much larger than Tom had realized, and she'd been stealing from multiple sources to cover them. Sandra Price had received immunity in exchange for her cooperation, but her business partnership with Grant was finished, and her reputation in the tech industry was in ruins. She'd avoided jail, but she'd lost everything else. Kara was facing disbarment proceedings and potential criminal charges for her role in the conspiracy. She'd moved in with her sister in Chicago, leaving Millbrook in disgrace. The woman who'd once been on track for partnership at a prestigious law firm was now unemployable in the legal profession. As for me, I'd become something of a local hero. The story of how a simple mechanic had exposed a complex fraud scheme was front-page news in the Millbrook Gazette. People I barely knew were stopping by the garage to shake my hand and congratulate me on my courage. But the real victory wasn't the public vindication. It was the quiet satisfaction of knowing I'd protected my children and my livelihood from people who would have destroyed both without a second thought. On a Friday evening in late October, I was closing up the garage when Ricky stopped by with a six-pack of beer. "Thought you might want to celebrate," he said, handing me a bottle. "Celebrate what?" "Grant Westbrook pleaded guilty today. He's going to prison for 5 years." I took a long drink of beer and considered this news. 5 years seemed like justice, but it wouldn't undo the damage he'd tried to cause. "How do you feel?" Ricky asked. "Tired," I said honestly. "Ready to move on?" "Any regrets?" I thought about that question. Did I regret the end of my marriage, the loss of old friendships, the upheaval in my children's lives? "No," I said finally. "I regret that it happened, but I don't regret how I handled it. They forced me to choose between being a victim and being a fighter. I chose to fight." "What's next for you?" "Next, I focus on my kids and my business. Maybe I'll expand the garage, hire some help. Lila's looking at colleges, and Josh is getting interested in working on cars. Life goes on." As Ricky and I sat in the gathering dusk, drinking beer and watching the town settle into evening, I reflected on how much had changed in just a few months. I'd lost a wife, but I'd gained self-respect. I'd lost some friends, but I'd discovered who my real friends were. I'd been betrayed, but I'd also been vindicated. Most importantly, I'd shown my children that sometimes you have to fight for what's right, even when the odds are against you. The next morning, I was surprised to find Tom Patterson waiting outside my garage when I arrived for work. "Jake, got a minute?" "Sure. What's on your mind?" "I wanted to thank you." "For what?" "For exposing Melissa's crimes. I know it wasn't about helping me, but it saved my business and probably my life. If she'd kept stealing, I would have been ruined." I nodded. "How are you doing?" "Better. The divorce will be final next month and the business is recovering. I'm thinking about moving somewhere fresh, starting over. That might be good for you." "Jake, I know I can't undo what happened between us, but I want you to know that I'm sorry. Really sorry. You deserved better from me." "Yeah, I did. But I understand why you made the choices you made. Melissa was good at manipulation." "Still friends?" I considered the question. Tom had betrayed me, but he'd also been a victim of the same people who'd tried to destroy me. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting, but it might mean moving forward. "We'll see," I said. "Time will tell." After Tom left, I got back to work on an engine rebuild I'd been putting off. As I worked, I thought about the concept of justice. Grant, Melissa, and Kara were all facing consequences for their actions. But was that really justice? Or was justice something more personal? The knowledge that I'd stood up for myself and my family when it mattered most. My phone rang, interrupting my philosophical musings. It was Lila, calling from school. "Dad, I got accepted to State University." "That's fantastic, sweetheart. I'm proud of you. The financial aid package is really good, too. I won't need to take out many loans." After I hung up, I smiled to myself. My daughter was going to college, my son was thriving, and my business was stronger than ever. Kara and her co-conspirators had tried to destroy my family's future, but instead, they'd only made us stronger. That evening, as I was helping Josh with his homework, he asked me a question that caught me off guard. "Dad, do you hate Mom?" I set down the math worksheet we'd been working on and looked at my son's earnest face. "No, buddy, I don't hate her." "But she tried to hurt you." "Yes, she did, but hating her would hurt me more than it would hurt her, and it wouldn't change what happened." "So you forgive her?" "I'm working on it. Forgiveness isn't something that happens all at once. It's a choice you make every day." "Will you ever get married again?" "I don't know. Maybe someday. But right now, I'm focused on being the best father I can be to you and your sister." Josh nodded solemnly, then went back to his math problems. But his questions stayed with me for the rest of the evening. As I sat in my living room that night looking through photo albums from happier times, I I realized that the real victory wasn't the destruction of my enemies, it was the preservation of what mattered most. My children still had a father they could respect and trust. My business was thriving. My reputation was intact. Kara had gambled everything on a fantasy of wealth and status, and she'd lost it all. Grant had thought his money could buy him anything he wanted, including another man's wife and property, and he'd learned otherwise in the most expensive way possible. Melissa had tried to manipulate everyone around her for her own benefit, and she'd ended up alone and facing prison. They'd all underestimated the simple mechanic who fixed cars and minded his own business. They'd thought I was weak because I was honest, stupid because I was trusting, and powerless because I wasn't wealthy. They'd been wrong on all counts. As I turned off the lights and headed upstairs to bed, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: peace. The war was over, justice had been served, and my family was safe. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight, I could rest easy knowing that sometimes the good guys really do win.